We learned a ton of cool new details about Tiny Tina's Wonderlands thanks to that gameplay reveal trailer during the Sony event, but even more was revealed in recent interviews with senior producer Kayla Belmore and creative director Matt Cox. We now have information on character creation, multi-classing, the new Overworld mechanic, and even our first sneak peek at some of the endgame mechanics. And by the way, if you're curious why the voice sounds different today, well, that's because this video wasn't narrated by Jordan, but by me, Dennis. I've been working for the channel for a while now, and I'm a huge fan of Borderlands and D&D, so Jor and I figured this one would be right up my alley. So if, like me, you are excited for Wonderlands, then a like on the video would really help the channel out. And let's go. So maybe you already noticed this shot during the gameplay reveal trailer where we see multiple player characters, but one of them has a more elven look and another looks very orcish. So yeah, that means that we aren't restricted to human characters, but instead we are given a lot of creative freedom when it comes to creating our own character for this game. In an interview with GameSpot, Kayla Belmore confirmed that the game won't have pre-made characters, stating that your voice, your appearance, all of that is independent. You get to choose your own voice and some other fun stuff that we can't dive into yet, but it goes into even your character's personality, not just aesthetics, and it's all independent. And like we mentioned earlier, even non-human features are also available, so if you want to have shark fins on your head or look like an orc, you can do that too. That's just talking about how our character looks though, but what is of course even more important is how they are going to play. When the game was revealed, we learned that Wonderlands would have some form of a multi-class system, but thanks to creative director Matt Cox, we now know exactly how that system is going to work. In that same interview with GameSpot, he explained you will be able to choose your primary class, and then later in the main story you will be able to slot a secondary class and mix and match those two classes and skill trees. That is your character for the campaign, but once you beat the plot you will be able to go back and respec your secondary class. So you'll still have to stick with your primary class, but you can try a different secondary. And to give some examples on what these skill trees might offer, I think it's related to the special moves that you see in the trailer where the camera goes into third person. We see this whirlwind attack, which I guess will be part of the barbarian type class in the game, as well as this ground pound with a giant hammer. And then a little bit later in the trailer we see a character casting a giant red wave of energy, which also looks like an ability to me. Now these could of course just be spells, which would make them part of your equipment, but the zoomed out camera makes me think there's something more going on here, because they kind of stand out. But yeah, going back to the multi-class system, it really does sound awesome to me. Borderlands always had a problem if you wanted to try out a new class, because classes were bound to characters, so if you wanted to try something new, you'd have to start the game all over. However, in Wonderlands you are able to mix and match classes as much as you want to. The only thing that stays locked is your primary class, but you are able to combine that with any of the other classes in the game to create your own unique build, which will also lead to some amazing possibilities. I mean, just looking at Borderlands 3 for some possibilities here, grabbing a character with Amara and then using a crit build flag to deal some really good damage, well, with the multi-class system you can do things like that with just a single character. I can't wait to see what crazy combinations people can come up with, and I think it will be a great addition to the franchise. Another thing that will definitely add to the build and combat variety are the new melee weapons, of which there seem to be a ton. In the trailer we already spotted swords, hammers, axes, and giant two-handed mauls and greatswords, and I think it's safe to expect some pretty crazy legendary perks on some of these. We already saw a Mjolnir type hammer that you can throw and then call back from the gameplay trailer, but we know how crazy some of the weapons in previous titles were, so I think we can expect a lot more stuff like that. Swords with legs, anyone? Anyway, even though they are a dedicated part of combat, Game Informer noted that we should not expect to see many full-on melee builds. They stated that while melee attacks will be important, dedicated melee builds are probably not going to be a thing outside of some old builds and legendary items. But we did learn that there is a lot of cool synergies between melee and other forms of combat, like being able to supercharge your next melee attack after getting a kill, or this example in the trailer where I think we see a character getting ammo back on a hit because of the icon that pops up after a hit. Kind of looks like an ammo icon to me. Another cool thing to note here is that you can transition immediately from a slide into a melee attack, which we also see in the trailer here. This is a new move for Wonderlands, but the developers have also confirmed that they've kept all the movement improvements from Borderlands 3. This means that ground slams, vaulting and sliding will all be part of our moveset in Wonderlands, which is once again great news because Borderlands 3 was a huge improvement when it came to movement compared to previous entries in the franchise, so I'm really glad to see that they've kept those changes. And since we're on the topic of traversal right now, maybe you already noted that strange sequence in the trailer where your character looks like a bobblehead and walks around a giant map. Well, that is not just a new section of gameplay, but an entirely new system called the Overworld. This is how you will travel to the different maps and locations in the game. There is also loot to find mind, as we already see characters opening up treasure chests here as well, plus exploration is rewarded too. Caleb Belmore noted that alongside the locations for main and side quests, there are 5 optional maps for you to discover that contain their own separate stories that add to the main narrative. And in true old-fashioned JRPG style, random encounters will also be a part of this overworld map. Kinda like in Pokemon, these will appear only in tall grass and once encountered will take you back to a combat arena and switch you back to first-person gameplay. These random encounters give you a chance to earn some extra loot, and according to the developers, you can opt into even longer encounters for a better chance at scoring higher quality loot. And to me, this sounds like another great addition to the game, as you can actively seek out combat encounters if you want, or completely ignore them if you just want to continue with the main quest. So that already shows how much content there's going to be in the game. We have main quests, side quests, these discoverable extra stories, and then the random encounters on the world map as well. But what about if you finish those? Well, we don't know exactly what endgame content is going to look like, although I feel like this giant sea monster from the trailer might belong in the endgame. He's looking pretty dangerous. No, but what we do know is that completing endgame challenges, you will be rewarded with an increase in your luck stat. As the name suggests, this will increase your drop chance for high rarity gear, so effectively the reward for completing endgame content is a higher chance at better loot, which is of course exactly the stuff you want in a looter shooter. If those endgame challenges are any good, I can see this becoming a very addictive loop where you complete a challenge, increase your luck, and then go back for even better loot. And there will be a lot of loot for us to collect, including those melee weapons we covered earlier, but there are also firearms, which include crossbows now, as well as armor and spells. And especially those last two are of course interesting, as those were not available in the Borderlands games. Armor already seems pretty varied, at least in terms of looks, as we see different sets of robes and armor throughout the trailer, including this roguelike armor with a cloak and this Dragon Knight armor, which looks awesome in my opinion. And then on top of that are spells, which you can cast while using your guns, or even, from the looks of it, cast 2 of them at the same time. Now, just a quick reminder to avoid any confusion when talking about spells, it sounds like they will fulfill a similar function to grenades in the Borderlands series, but with a lot more variety to them. Matt Cox confirmed this back during the game's reveal at the Summer of Games, noting that they see spells as mini skills because of their power and variety in behaviors. And we can definitely already see a pretty varied roster of spells just looking at the gameplay reveal trailer. Some of them are just straight up damage dealers, like this rotating blade that changes targets on your command, but we also have some crowd control spells like these ice meteors that freeze your enemies, and what looks to be a polymorph spell which changes the shark monster into an adorable little skag. Game Informer even noted that there will be self-casting spells, so buffs you put on yourself or allies, so it sounds like spells are hugely influential to your playstyle, which in turn makes finding new ones even more exciting, as they can really change up the way you play the game. So with all this new information, I think it's safe to say that so far Wonderlands is looking pretty great. We haven't even mentioned the crazy enemy variety we saw in the trailer yet. Just to name one example, there is a crab with a pirate ship on its back. Anyway, once we learn more about Wonderlands, we will of course let you know here, so subscribe to miss nothing, and if you want, you can watch our previous Wonderlands video where we discuss everything we've learned from the game's reveal at Gamescom. For now, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye!